So what is this beautiful, beautiful science that comes so well, like a hand in a glove, to the work that you're doing with kids and animals and learners of all sizes and shapes? Behavior analysis, the study of behavior change due to experience, the interaction between behavior and the environment. And applied behavior analysts are the people who appeal to that science and then apply these experimentally derived principles to the everyday behavior problems we have. I think of us as engineers in the sense that when we talk about behavior problems, we're not doing it with the value-laden, oppressive word problem. We're talking about it from a constructional point of view. How are we going to build this bridge for this behavior to contact reinforcement and experience success? By behavior, we're talking about observable, measurable things, and that's one of the really breathtaking things, and there are many, of Teresa and Joan's work, is this articulation on the doing and the observable. And then analysis, that we assess those relations, we make hypotheses, we take baseline data, we intervene, and we track what we do so that we are aware of whether we're doing harm or not, or success or not. And in a beautiful, very different framework of experimental design, we're able to track and then change what we do in small tweaks until we meet success. So we never fail. All of us in this room, we never fail because we tweak what we do until we succeed. Reinforcement never fails. So one of my favorite quotes from Skinner in Science of Human Behavior is that on your shelf. Just that one. If there's only one, I would pick that one. He said, the practice of looking inside the organism for an explanation of behavior has tended to obscure the variables which are immediately available for scientific analysis. These variables lie outside the organism in its immediate environment and its learning, its environmental history, its learning history. And now we know in 2018 that this is as true for overt behavior as it is for brain function, as it is for genetic expression. As Susan Schneider says, the whole shebang is churning all the time, and in concordance with those different systems churning is the influence that the environment has. So if you're a neuroscientist, you can drop your parachute in at the brain, but the environment is influencing what that brain is doing. And if you're a geneticist, you can start at the genetic level, but the environment is tapping into those genes to express or to not express that genetic function. So wherever we go, the whole system is related to the pressures or the influences of the environment. And that somehow got outside the cultural block when we put behavior inside the individual with all of our many different ways of doing that, whether it's religion or politics or culture or so forth and so on. So all those many decades, and even now, when we hear trainers say to us, but I'm worried about the child or the elephant's free will, I remind them that nobody gets up in the morning when their feet touch the ground and not the ceiling and say, damn Newton, he's constraining my free will. Of course, behavior is lawful. It is part of the planet and one of our most astounding behavioral genetic adaptations. Some of the obstacles to this, then, this understanding of behavior as part of our biological endowment, the ability to change what we do as necessary to survive and to thrive, more than just surviving, is this idea that personal recipes are enough. So here's another great, small, very readable book by Stanovich. She says, we must give up the idea that personal recipe knowledge of, I'll put in quotes, human behavior or any learner's behavior is adequate, that this is the only psychology we need. And one of the greatest obstacles, I think, is the bane of psychology. Another great book, Mismeasure of Man by Stephen Jay Gould, where he reveals the history of psychology, and it's very shocking. One of the greatest obstacles to helping learners is this idea that constructed explanations, that is, the labels we use for behavior explain why animals and learners are doing what they're doing. So now we have a kid or a giraffe who's not responding according to our cue because they are stubborn. It is the stubbornness that is causing the refusal, rather than what we understand is their history of reinforcement and punishment, right? Maybe our timing is off, our reinforcers are too weak. It could be that what we think is reinforcing is not for the individual at that time. All of the dials on our pilot's console that we use to fly this ship of teaching and training are what we have to turn to when animals don't behave as we expect. So we need to replace these constructed explanations, dominant, stubborn, jealous, even the medical terms, which have differential diagnostic value perhaps for a veterinarian, because an anxious animal might be prescribed a different medicine than one that's called phobic or fearful, from our trainer and teacher point of view, are really quite meaningless. What I'm looking for is that there's a learner who's cowering in the corner, regardless of the label that I use, whether I say anxious or fearful, it will not change my rumbling around in my Mary Poppins bag to look at perhaps counter-conditioning or shaping in small enough approximations that I allow the animal to contact their power to move forward or back. He's not behaving that way because he has separation anxiety. He behaves that way, upset, even in self-injurious ways under the conditions of being home alone. And we call that separation anxiety. So give that a big think. These labels and constructs are obstacles to a scientific analysis of behavior, and they're slowing your success because they're directing you to recipes and formula that our study of one teaches us we need to put aside to look at the individual in conditions. Okay? No animal is cowering 24/7. It's conditional. It's in this way that the environment is changing the brain, changing the genes, and changing that overt behavior, which is our jam. So Skinner said so wisely, with such great meaning, it does not help in the solution of a practical problem to be told that some feature of an individual's behavior is due to frustration or due to anxiety. We also need to be told how the frustration or anxiety has been induced and how it may be altered. So what we're saying here is, when we hear those labels, we ask, what does the animal do? And most importantly, under what conditions do they do it? So the smallest unit really is that behavior conditions unit. Okay? To talk about behavior alone is meaningless because behavior is always conditional. That's the beauty of this biology on this planet. I once talked for scientists at NASA. That was the most intimidating. No, the ethologists were more intimidating. I'm reminded of that. All physicists and astrophysicists, and I thought, what could I possibly tell them? And I told them these very same things, and they were absolutely awestruck. They had no idea there was a science of behavior, and that this is what it looked like. And we agreed we don't know what it looks like on other planets because the pressures of those environments may change the evolutionary adaptations of operating on the environment in those places, but I suspect it will be very much the same. So I brought you Unlabel Me, but they're in English, the ones I brought you, Unlabel Me bumper stickers, which Gina said she'd help make sure each one of you get. So be assertive about that. And it's been translated in so many different languages. Japanese is the most beautiful, I think, from an art point of view. We need to unlabel these animals and continue our push to describe behavior, but not just behavior in conditions.